what, very simple terms, Xi Jinping's dream for what he wanted to do. Do you think there's a point where he almost loses control? His calculus changes to a point where he starts making irrational decisions. So they're undermanned, they're underprepared financially, they're nowhere near as competitive, yet he sends them in anyway to invade Taiwan, and the people of China may be fully against it. But at that point, the balls start rolling, and all of a sudden we're in this massive global war happening because, he almost lost his mind being denied something that he always wanted. Do you see that as a possibility, I guess, in the next couple of years?
Honestly, I personally think, I think Putin would do this before Xi would do it. Because fundamentally the Chinese Communist Party is really about power over anything else. So if it means they can maintain their power, they would do so without going the extreme. But so how do I make sense of this? So obviously, outside of the things we just talked about, I think Xi is still smart enough to realize that if he does launch a nuclear missile across, to the United States or something like that, that's really the end of him. Because I at that point, obviously, it's chaos everywhere. But I don't think that's what he wants. He wants to be the great communist leader like Mao. But he also knows that in this time and age, to do that, you cannot be the mind. Like, this isn't the 20th century. Let's just say that. I think things have, I don't know, like our modern world, it's obviously, nuclear is still a big threat, but I think there's many more aspects to the new Cold War that's not nuclear anymore, right? There's the AI stuff, the high-tech stuff. So I think for people like Xi, if he really only cares about power, which I think he does, I don't think there's a reason for him to, having to go to the nuclear option. I think that's a very, how do I say it? That's a very backward thinking. That's why I think like he's smart in the sense that I think he's willing to evolve with that. But at the end of the day, if Xi is, something happens to Xi, I think he's more worried about him domestically. So I think he'd rather, maintain his, because I think ultimately, let me just be honest. I think ultimately if he does choose to do something over Taiwan and it fails, that's the end of him. And I think he doesn't want that. He'd rather rule as a leader and try to paint an image that he is great rather than actually do something and then having it backfire over Taiwan. Because I think, the only real war that the CCP has fought is really the Korean War, and their casualty was great. They've never been involved in a major conflict outside of that, minus, there's conflicts with Vietnam, but that's pretty small scale. And so I really question if he is willing to do this. I think at the end of the day, his power comes from ruling over the idea that, he's going to do something. But I question if he's willing, he has that resolve to do the nuclear stuff. But I think Putin is actually somebody that is more. Yeah. But I don't think Xi would do it.
I think I tend to agree with that. I think there's a level within Chinese culture too where there's a willingness to go back to the drawing board and say, let's plan for the next 100 years. Let's figure this out. Let's reset. There seems to be, whether it's with Putin or whatever it might be, is to just quickly go to that extreme and say, we need to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish now. So I would tend to agree. I think we can get into this a little bit too, what the future outlook would be, whether that's with Xi in the picture or not. But I tend to agree, I think. And that's where, again, I think the highlight of this episode is going to be is like, I don't think that they're going to make a move on Taiwan anymore. And I purely think that's because of everything we've seen, like you were highlighting. Everything they've been wanting to do behind closed doors has actually been going the opposite direction. And, I think it's become to the point where they're starting to slowly realize, we have to change our tune on the global scale and, how they're approaching situations. I guess another really important one that just happened